man becomes king and unmasks the Illuminati. When the prophet Jonah received God's call, he fled and warned the city of Nineveh about a terrible prophecy. Then the king commanded a fast, even for animals. However, nothing happened, and Jonah became very angry. Therefore, my conclusion is that people in crowds are not capable of repentance, but they can fall into panic, and God take it into account. There are bars made of thick material. They are immensely large and almost impassable. What impresses us about these bars is that they were at first pure idealization, but finally they have managed to build themselves under our noses in an objective way. Some of these sentences are part of the introduction to my book, and were written to call the authorities' attention to worry about a serious complaint. The Illuminati are always hiding their face and their presence, making us believe that they do not exist, but their symbols are present in the idols of fortune tellers. Santeros venerate saints who commune with the Catholic Church, satanic groups, in money, in clothing, and others. These people periodically gather to sacrifice a victim for the purpose of acquiring powers and look into the future. I have personally found that they succeed because they use the power of the spirits. What is the reason why society in general doesn't realize that every day there are people who disappear without a trace? This is how their relatives die of anguish and cry out for justice. In most cases, the disappeared person is a relative or acquaintance of one of the members of this mafia. The Catholic Church knows this situation and is silent, as in other similar situations. So it covers up practices of Satanism, hides idols, and practices idolatry. What has been said above is something that, together with the theory of the fourth dimension, I will explain later. Baruch Spinoza maintained that an action is virtuous to the extent that it is powerful, understanding by virtue the same thing as power. This is the story of my life, a character who against his will transformed the power into virtue, a victim of a macabre game, as well as some nomadic tribes in Africa that look for water in the desert, whose circumstances have made a dehydrated monkey find desperate the vital liquid. Another metaphor that I mentioned is that of the rabbit from Alice in Wonderland. These are similar situations that resemble my story. It is therefore my journey and the induced suffering since I can remember, which have illustrated the path of the divine. I have seen strong revelations that I have shared with my relatives. These are miracles that the proper authorities should pay attention. Those who are unaware of the hoarder of everything around them will never have the opportunity to take the snake by the head and the tail at the same time, since they have always been trained that this is impossible. So they do not realize, and it is really difficult to realize, that imposing beliefs is the game of those who control the herd. I repeat that I have had strong spiritual revelations that I would like to be verified. It is not the same to believe in God and be a true believer with the fact of carrying the faith. The pastor or spiritual guide can be wrong because he is an imperfect human. The true believer, no, in my case, I'm a guy with many mistakes and a distorted personality, a product of the abuses that I have experienced, similar to those of the fatal victims that I'm mentioning. But I have not died because God has sent me to give this message. I discovered that I have special genetics that allow me to get in touch with spirits and with those metaphysical phenomena that closely resemble the powers and things that Jesus professed. This special genetics has been cleverly manipulated and hijacked by the Catholic Church for centuries, granting noble titles to those who do not deserve them, because the Catholic Church is part of a universal mafia. I also discovered that because of this genetics, I have had approximately 100 children obtained from the used condoms that I threw in the garbage can. I have naively had sex with at least 2 of my daughters. The priests of the Catholic Church are not the physical kidnappers. They have people who do it because they are hardly capable of committing pedophilia, since that is what they were born for. Adulteries can serve to open portals. This is something that I discovered through my revelations, since there is a spirit whose spiritual level is lower than Jesus, but very powerful at the same time, called the Nameless Knight, a brave, courageous, gallant being who still lives among us. Moreover, while the Illuminati don't finish feminizing us, their job is to feminize and demonize everything for the purpose of gaining power, and they win over their followers the way the universal mafia does. These people only deserve pity because they know that they cannot free themselves from the sin they carry. It is a decidedly demonic situation. Jesus has explained to me that the problem is some demons created by the ovaries of women who work through hysteria. The other factor is the rage and anger of the nameless gentleman because he has been ignored by the maneuvers of the Catholic Church that is founded on the Apostle Peter, who identifies him through apostolic succession as the first pope. The Catholic mob boastfully and based solely on the words that Jesus said to his apostle Peter, "You are Peter, and on this rock I'll build my church, and the power of death will not prevail against it. I will give you the keys to the kingdom of heaven." Actually, none of the apostles was good to Jesus. Each one of them was healed of their demons in the way that was mentioned and exhorted how it is mentioned in the gospel. Well, for example, when Jesus tells Peter himself, "Get away from me, Satan," is what Simon Peter had to hear to be healed. The deep reflection of the Bible in this passage teaches us that we must know how to say no to our temptations. Jesus knew he had to give himself up, and Peter was only pretending to help him as a hysterical woman. That is the spirit of Satan that keeps our society intoxicated under the auspices of the Catholic Church and the status quo in which we have fallen because of these maneuvers. I do not know how long I will continue to have these revelations. However, I have done some miracles that should be verified. Personally, I assume these revelations are miracles because I did not know that they were messages from the spirits. And when a spirit leaves a body, it travels through the most desolate places, and not finding a body to inhabit, it returns to the body from which it came, bringing other spirits. On the other hand, and no less important, a few years ago I changed my life. I began to congregate and follow Jesus. In the month of December of the previous year, I was recommended the help of a shaman, a kind of witch doctor from the local culture. I agreed to the recommendation and felt good for several days until at one point I realized that the spirit returned exhausted but with company. This spirit always wanted to make me feel like a king, and I wanted to transform myself into that, and I thought of doing it in a pompous event, but I had to do it quickly since it had been a short time after the death of Queen Elizabeth. Then I had to check if I could attract the spirits by disguising myself as a king as they had recommended to me. A poor defenseless puberty is what I was when people around me began to wash my head, filling me with ideas. Some of these ideas were things that already lived in my head, but they filled my files even more. What I didn't know is that those were messages from the spirits that take care of me. So since I was a child, I received a series of recommendations to make a lady fall in love and make her feel like a princess when I was really in love. I am 49 years old and I ran out of time to resolve my sentimental situation. I easily fell in love with a pretty girl of those who work on the street, and I gave myself the pleasure of making her feel like a princess emulating a movie that I like. Then I followed some steps that were also recommended to me, still unaware that they were messages from the spirits. Then what it was doing was opening dimensional portals. Then I remembered that they told me that I had to go to a large cave like the one of the Teos to charge myself with power with a chalice to announce the end of the world until they listened to my complaints.
Señor Dios, reclamo tu presencia. Llena, por favor, tu ira en esta copa. Reclamo a los espíritus de la cueva de los tallos. Vamos a armar el fin del mundo. Tenemos que enfrentarnos a la mafia internacional. La gente tiene que dejar de ser tan histérica y tan ignorante. Tenemos que reformar este mundo. Por favor, escuchen las denuncias que estoy haciendo. Entiendan que este es el máximo esfuerzo que puede hacer un hombre. Señor, por tu gracia, por tu poder, a ti la gloria, Señor. Esto no es nada personal, es un trabajo para Dios. En el nombre de Jesús, amén.
Then I felt the Spirit of Jesus enter my body and tell me that I had to scare Satan away. This spirit was inside a person who had been bothering me and who I finally decided to do without for my adventure in the cave. Without knowing God's designs, I found the Spirit again within another person who accompanied us in the group of tourists that went to the Cueva de los Teos cave of the Oilberg. Apparently, this guy had forgotten that he knew me and that he bullied me during my puberty and adolescence. So he earned an exhortation. Inside the cave, before going to invoke God, I involuntarily fell into a state of meditation when I heard the song, O Fortune. I felt the entrance of the Lamb, and I verified that the Spirit of Jesus had entered me. After the invocation, I was attacked by evil spirits, and I began to roll noisily on the rocks as a result of a little alcohol that I drank. But the Spirit of Jesus saved me from this attack, and now I am ready for anything. The spirit of the king or knight without a name, or also called Lord of Hosts, is a very old spirit to Jesus, so it is also pertinent to emulate it. We know that the body is a temple of the Spirit. If you eat another person's body, you are also ingesting their spirit. For this reason, the victims of the Illuminati are usually lonely people and preferably children because meat tastes better for them. First, the victim is mutilated to prevent him from escaping. Then he receives assistance and comfort from those who have captured him to start a psychological torture, whose captors know all the details of the victim's life to torment him. When they consider the ideal time, they put a shooter with a rifle that does not have the ability to kill the person, but with this instrument they get what they need. The injured party must beg to be killed, so these people know that he is ready to be eaten. It is the most macabre thing that can exist, for God's sake. After ending the life of this person, these perverts remove a piece of meat and divide it among all those who participated in the kidnapping, and they ingest this little piece by placing themselves in the presence of the next victim they plan to kidnap, and in this way they can visualize the future. This mafia has its techniques to disappear the body and the evidence. The root of the Illuminati is in the sports coach of the Catholic schools. The physical trainer is the only one who remains on campus, but never enters the church, because he is outside indoctrinating, choosing, and conspiring. His workplace is a position ensured by the Catholic Church and is a legacy received by his relatives. I asked police investigators around the world to take this detail into account. Approximately 2 years ago, I finished writing my autobiographical book. By mistake, I dedicated it to one of my friends who started promoting it, and with great shame, I had to ask him to stop those publications because I was being blackmailed by a person who told me to be rights human beings, who contradictorily helped me find my sister who was kidnapped by my own family, and another series of abuses, which I have dealt with the authorities, but due to their indifference, I have had to do this. This is Ruben, who in documents claims to be my father, whom I hold responsible for my possible illness and the things I wrote in my autobiographical book. I firmly maintain that Giovanni Pinda, who in documents appears as my cousin, is actually my twin brother, and for 2 years I have been requesting his DNA. I have also asked the authorities to help me clarify and prove that Ruben is not my father, but there is no positive answer. From my birth, I only received a miserable love from Ruben, and with the complicity of my mother, they have made me sick by making me believe things about the Illuminati. They have also taught me how to end these barbarians. Ruben made me believe that I am the Antichrist, and that I had to get the spirits out of the Cuba de los Teos disguised as a wise man and with royal insignia on my vehicle, with the purpose of enabling the last possible resource to draw the attention of the authorities, take action about the complaints I have been making. I'm finally done believing these things and actually feel something like the presence of spirits inside my body. I can no longer hate Ruben. Now he has become a teacher. By the way, this last paragraph is what I wrote 2 months ago when I still didn't understand that the messages came from the spirits. Ruben mentioned many times that one day Javier will be screaming with his book, "Kill me, I want to please this individual," and that way I stay in calm. I've kept my psychologist informed all the time. He and I agree that some mental illnesses are similar to bodily illnesses. In fact, my situation is particularly similar to viruses, because it has had to go through a process. I told my psychologist and asked him if my disease is giving way, so he told me to write a book about my psychic phenomena and to keep attending therapy. Now I am the Antichrist, and I will say it only once. And this accursed cup will be watered only once. As Javier Pasantes, I will continue teaching because I have the spirit of Jesus and the nameless gentleman. And the satanic Illuminati who eat human flesh are able to understand everything I am manifesting because they are the same spirits that speak to them. These people behave like vultures. They are never full, and they are always looking at what the other ate. So they easily approach spirits that make them vomit their sins. God the Father has infinite personalities, but his human figure is like that of a hermit. Let us remember that he has been present since the formation of the stones. and is symbolically a man and not a woman. The nameless knight is masculine, and Jesus is an extraordinary warrior who knows the spirits, and it is Christ who is offended by that figure nailed to the cross. Those crazy things the Illuminati do. Since the time of Moses, the people have wanted to have a female idol. It is about demonic influences because, as a rotten society that we are, we have forgotten the value of women, and we have ignored that they are all beings of light in this life. They are spiritual beings by themselves, and some magnify themselves and believe that women are superior to men and more evolved as a gender. Actually, yes, it is like that because they are more connected to nature. They do not need the spirits to evolve because they connect with the spirits directly because they are at their level. From what has been said, the characterizations that women want as icons, because each one is beautiful and charming in its own way. The Amazons attract the gaze of flowers, the blondes stop traffic and cause accidents, the grace of the ladies of the city transports us to a magical place, the joy of women clears the clouds and it rains when they are sad. Therefore, there is no need to illustrate an idol as feminine to understand that it is something divine. Here are Aphrodite, Venus, Athena, Selene, Demeter, Artemis, Cybele, Oro, Iris, Persephone, Helena, Diana, Irene, Juno, Minerva, Felicitas, Victoria, Flora, Aurora, Fortuna, Phrygia, Sif, Fig, Hela, Jord, Ira, Sigyn, Bar, Sin, Not. They are all goddesses, and I surrender to them for their heroic courage. But the only one I worship is the living God, who is omnipresent. Exaggerated and provocative worship is also hysteria. On the other hand, there are spiritual leaders who resemble Cephas, and they should leave that space for a true leader. There are many secret texts that the Illuminati have, and some of them, for inexplicable reasons, have not been able to modify them. One of them is the Song of El Cid, that is to do with the nameless knight, and using that resource they have been able to hold the king's blood captive to this day, proving the existence of the king and the spirits means solving the fourth dimension. One of my tasks is to shame the evil spirits and make people understand that all those stereotypes that are spread to people are a consequence of nature. Of course, I cannot continue to spread for now, and what I want is to be at peace with God, who loves me so much and has sent me to do this job. I understand that I have powers because I have verified that the armed people who offered to kill said that they could not use their arms. Really, they had reasons to kill me. And these are the things that I am doing now. I don't pay attention to threats. Any unwanted person who wants to check it, look for me. Justice be done even though the world perishes. First God, and then you.